I cheated on Sarah the night before she died. Not in some drunken blackout. Not because she was a bad wife. I did it because I was selfish. Because Emma from accounting smiled at me like I was interesting again. Because I convinced myself I deserved to feel wanted after 7 years of marriage that had gotten comfortable. Comfortable. That's the word I used to justify everything. We met on a work conference. Sarah was home with our 4-year-old daughter, Mia, probably reading bedtime stories and wondering when I'd call. I didn't call. I was too busy laughing at Emma's jokes in the hotel bar, too busy feeling like the version of myself I thought I'd lost. It started innocent. That's what I told myself. Just two colleagues having drinks. Just harmless flirting. Just a conversation that felt electric in a way my marriage hadn't felt in months. By midnight, we were in her hotel room. I remember every detail with the kind of clarity that tortures you. The way I silenced my phone when Sarah texted asking if I'd landed safely. The way I kissed someone who wasn't my wife and felt alive instead of guilty. The way I left at 3 a.m. and promised Emma we'd see each other again. I flew home the next morning planning my next lie. Sarah picked me up from the airport with me in the back seat, my daughter squealing "Daddy," like I was a hero returning from war. Sarah kissed my cheek, asked how the conference went. I looked into her eyes and lied so smoothly it scared me. That was Thursday. Friday morning, Sarah dropped me at preschool and headed to her dental practice. She was a dentist, loved her patients, always came home with stories about kids who weren't afraid of the chair anymore. She texted me at 10:47 a.m., "Love you. Pick up milk on your way home?" I replied with a thumbs up. I was too busy texting Emma. At 11:15 a.m., a police officer showed up at my office. Sarah's car had gone off the road on Highway 9. A sharp curve she'd driven 1,000 times. Her car hit a tree at 60 miles per hour. She died on impact. They said it looked like she'd swerved suddenly, maybe to avoid an animal. No skid marks. No witnesses. Just a wife and mother gone in a moment of bad luck. I became a widower at 32. The funeral was a blur. I held Mia while she cried for her mommy. I accepted condolences from Sarah's parents, her friends, her co-workers who thought I was a devoted husband. I gave a eulogy about how much I loved her, how she was my everything. I was a performer in my own nightmare. Emma sent flowers. She didn't come to the funeral. She texted 2 weeks later asking if I was okay, if we could talk. I blocked her number. Not out of guilt. Out of survival. I couldn't let anyone know what I'd done. For 3 years, I played the grieving widow perfectly. I raised Mia alone. Went to therapy and cried about losing Sarah. Kept her pictures everywhere. Wore my wedding ring. I became the tragic figure everyone pitied. The single dad who lost his soulmate too soon. But at night, alone, I was drowning. The guilt ate me alive. I'd cheated on my wife hours before she died. She'd never know. I'd never be caught. But I knew. And it was killing me slowly, one sleepless night at a time. I started having panic attacks. Started drinking too much. Started wondering if somehow I'd caused it. If the universe had punished me by taking her away before I could confess. Before I could beg forgiveness. A month ago, I finally decided to move on. Not romantically, I couldn't imagine that. But practically. Mia was 7 now, asking questions about heaven and why mommy couldn't come back. I needed to close chapters. Pack up Sarah's office. Sort through her files. I found the box on a Tuesday. It was in the garage, labeled insurance, car accident. I'd never opened. Sarah's parents had handled everything after she died. I was too destroyed to deal with paperwork. Inside were police reports, insurance claims, photos from the accident scene. I almost closed it. But something made me read the police report. That's when my world cracked open again. The report noted damage to Sarah's rear bumper consistent with another vehicle impact. Fresh paint transfer. Blue paint that didn't match Sarah's silver sedan. My hands started shaking. I kept reading. The investigating officer had noted it seemed like a rear-end collision that forced Sarah off the road. But the case was closed as a single vehicle accident because they never found another car. They assumed she'd been bumped earlier that day and just hadn't noticed. But I knew Sarah. She would have noticed. She would have filed a report, called insurance. She was meticulous about things like that. I pulled out the insurance documents. There was a claim I'd never seen before, filed 3 days before her death. Sarah had reported someone following her, driving aggressively behind her on her way to work 2 days in a row. Same blue car. She'd gotten scared enough to document it. The insurance company had noted her concern but closed the file after her death. I sat in that garage for 2 hours, reading and rereading everything. Sarah hadn't swerved to avoid an animal. Someone had hit her car and forced her off the road. Someone had followed her, terrorized her, and killed her. And I'd been too busy planning my next hookup with Emma to notice my wife was frightened. I went through her phone records next. I still had access to our old account. In the week before she died, Sarah had called her best friend Jenny 4 times. Long conversations. I called Jenny. "Did Sarah tell you someone was following her?" I asked. Long silence. Then, quietly, "She was scared, Tom. She thought she was being paranoid. But yes. She said there was a blue sedan that kept showing up behind her. Same car for 3 days straight." "Did she say anything else?" Another pause. "She said she thought it might have something to do with a patient. Someone she'd had to fire a few weeks before. He'd been inappropriate with her, and she'd reported him to the office manager. He'd sent angry emails." My blood went cold. "What was his name?" "I don't know. She never told me." "But Tom, why are you asking this now? It's been 3 years." I hung up. I went to Sarah's dental office the next day. The office manager remembered me, hugged me, told me how much they still missed Sarah. I asked about the patient Sarah had reported. She pulled the file. His name was Marcus Webb. Sarah had filed a formal complaint about him 6 weeks before she died. He'd made sexual comments during appointments, asked her out repeatedly despite her wedding ring, escalated to showing up at the office unannounced. Sarah had him permanently banned and reported him to the state dental board. 2 weeks later, Marcus's wife filed for divorce, citing his harassment of Sarah as evidence of a pattern. He lost custody of his kids, lost his job when his employer found out. His life fell apart because Sarah had done the right thing. I found his address in the file. Still local, still living 20 minutes away from where I'd raised my daughter for 3 years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sarah's last morning. She'd kissed me goodbye, asked me to pick up milk. She'd had no idea someone was hunting her, and I'd been too distracted by my affair to protect her. I started digging deeper. Found Marcus Webb's vehicle registration from 3 years ago. Blue Honda Civic. The same blue paint found on Sarah's car. I filed a police report the next morning. Brought everything I'd found. The officer listened politely, took notes, then explained that 3 years was too long. No physical evidence remained. Marcus had probably sold that car. Without witnesses or proof, they couldn't reopen the investigation. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, "but there's nothing we can do." I walked out of that police station and realized the truth. My wife was murdered. The man who killed her was free. And I was the husband who betrayed her hours before she died. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I can't go to Marcus Webb's house. I can't get justice through the police. I can't bring Sarah back. I can't undo what I did. Mia asks about her mom every day. "Did mommy know I love her?" She asked last night. I told her yes. I lied again. Because the truth is, Sarah spent her last week terrified and alone. She called her best friend instead of me because I was probably texting another woman. She drove to her death while I was planning my next betrayal. I cheated on my wife, and while I was in another woman's bed, someone was plotting to kill mine. She died thinking I loved her. I started following Marcus Webb 3 days after the police dismissed my report. I know how that sounds. I know what you're thinking. But I couldn't let it go. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's car wrapped around that tree. Every time Mia asked about her mother, I felt the weight of everything I'd failed to protect. I found his address easily. Public records. He lived in a small rental house on the south side of town, the kind of neighborhood where people mind their own business. I drove past at different times of day, learning his routine like I was studying for an exam I couldn't afford to fail. Marcus Webb was 41. Divorced. Lost his engineering job 2 years ago. Now worked night shifts at a warehouse. His ex-wife had full custody of their 2 kids. I found all of this online, piecing together the wreckage of a life that had imploded. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him. The rest of me remembered the blue paint on Sarah's bumper. I started parking down the street from his house. Watching. Waiting for what? I didn't know. Confirmation? Confession? Some sign that would make sense of everything? Week 1. I learned he kept to himself. No visitors. No friends stopping by. He left for work at 10 p.m. Came home at 6 a.m., slept during the day. A ghost of a man living a ghost of a life. Week 2. I followed him to work. Then to a bar he stopped at most mornings after his shift. He drank alone. Never talked to anyone. Just sat there staring at his phone, at his beer, at nothing. I wanted him to be a monster. I wanted him to look evil, to radiate guilt, to give me something concrete. But he just looked broken. That's when I started questioning everything. What if I was wrong? What if the blue paint was a coincidence? What if Sarah really had swerved to avoid an animal and the insurance report about someone following her was unrelated? What if I was creating a villain to distract myself from being one? I almost stopped. Almost convinced myself I was spiraling. Then I went through Sarah's emails. I'd never looked before. Couldn't bring myself to invade her privacy even after death. But now I needed answers more than I needed to preserve her memory. I found them in a folder labeled Threads. Marcus Webb had sent Sarah 17 emails in the month before she died. They started polite, apologizing for making her uncomfortable, asking for another chance, explaining that he'd just been trying to be friendly, that she'd misunderstood his intentions. Then they got desperate, begging her to drop the complaint, explaining that it would ruin his marriage, his career, his life, promising he'd never contact her again if she'd just reconsider. Then they got angry. "You don't know what you've done," one read. "You've destroyed everything I built. My wife is leaving me. My kids won't talk to me. All because you couldn't take a compliment." Another, "People like you think you're so perfect, so untouchable. You smile at everyone, but the second someone actually notices you, you cry harassment. You're a tease and a liar." The final email, sent 2 days before Sarah died: "I hope you understand what it feels like to lose everything. I hope someone shows you what real consequences look like." I read that last line 50 times. Then I threw up in my office trash can. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't coincidence. Marcus Webb had threatened my wife. Then she died. I took screenshots of everything. Went back to the police. Different officer this time. Younger, seemed more interested. He reviewed the emails, the insurance reports, the complaints Surrey had filed. "This is concerning," he admitted. "But it's still circumstantial. Angry emails don't prove vehicular homicide. And after 3 years, we can't even prove he owned that specific car at the time. The paint match would be crucial, but that vehicle is gone. So he gets away with it?" The officer looked uncomfortable. "I'll file a supplemental report. If any new evidence emerges, we can revisit. But I'm being honest with you. Without physical evidence or a witness, there's no case." I left feeling more helpless than before. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I created a fake email account. Female name. Sent Marcus Webb a message saying I was a reporter writing a story about men falsely accused of harassment. Asked if he'd be willing to share his experience with Dr. Sarah Jen. He responded within an hour. "Finally someone willing to listen to the truth," he wrote. "That woman destroyed my life over nothing. She filed complaints, got me banned, reported me to the board. My wife left me. My kids hate me. I lost my job. All because I was nice to her." I pushed further. "Do you feel like justice was served when she died?" Long pause. Then, "I don't wish death on anyone. But I won't pretend I was sad when I heard. Sometimes the universe balances things out." My hands shook so hard I could barely type. "Did you have anything to do with her accident?" He went silent. Didn't respond for 2 days. Then, "Who is this really? If you're with the police, I know my rights. I don't have to answer anything." I'd spooked him. Shut down the one lead I had. I started losing it after that. Stopped sleeping more than 2 hours a night. Started drinking before noon. Mia's teacher called asking if everything was okay at home because Mia had been acting out, seemed anxious. I was failing my daughter the same way I'd failed my wife. My sister Emily came over one evening, took one look at me, and said, "Tom, you look like death. What's going on?" I told her everything. The affair. The emails. Marcus Webb. The blue car. All of it spilled out in a confession I'd been holding for 3 years. Emily listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You need therapy," she finally said. "Real therapy. Not this investigation obsession. You're destroying yourself." He killed her, Emily. Maybe. Probably. But you can't prove it, and you can't bring her back. What you can do is be present for Mia. She's losing you too, Tom. She's watching her father disappear into guilt and revenge. She was right. I knew she was right. But I couldn't stop. I went to the bar Marcus frequented. Sat 3 stools away. Waited for him to show up after his shift. He walked in at 6:30 a.m., ordered a whiskey, didn't look at anyone. I stared at him. This man. This stranger who'd maybe taken everything from me. He looked exhausted. Beaten down. Human. I finished my drink and left. I wasn't ready for confrontation. Wasn't sure what I'd even say. 2 days later, I hired a private investigator. Her name was Linda Chen, no relation to Sarah despite the shared last name. She was ex-police, specialized in cold cases. Cost me $300 an hour I couldn't afford. I gave her everything I had. She called me a week later. I found something, she said. Marcus Webb's cell phone records from the week Sarah died. I have a contact who pulled them. His phone pinged off towers along Highway 9 the morning of the accident. Same time. Same location. My heart stopped. That proves he was there. It proves his phone was there. Not that he hit her car. But Tom, there's more. I interviewed his ex-wife. She said Marcus came home that morning agitated. Told her he'd been an offender bender. She asked if he was okay, if he'd filed a police report. He said no, it was just a bump, nothing serious. Then 2 days later, Sarah died. His wife said he was glued to the news coverage. Seemed obsessed with the story. Did she tell the police this? She didn't know it mattered. They'd separated by then. She thought he was just being his usual strange self. But she remembers it clearly because a week later, he sold his car. Got rid of it fast. She thought it was weird at the time. Everything clicked into place. Marcus Webb had followed Sarah, hit her car, forced her off the road, then sold the evidence and watched the news to make sure he'd gotten away with it. My wife was murdered, and I'd been too busy destroying our marriage to notice she was in danger. Linda looked at me sympathetically. This is enough to reopen the investigation. I'm taking this to a detective I trust. But Tom, you need to prepare yourself. Even if they charge him, even if there's a trial, it won't bring her back. And it won't absolve you. That last part hit like a bullet. Because she was right. Even if Marcus Webb went to prison for the rest of his life, it wouldn't change what I'd done. It wouldn't erase the affair. It wouldn't give Mia her mother back. It wouldn't make me less of a monster. The detective Linda contacted was named Maria Rodriguez. She reviewed everything, interviewed Marcus's ex-wife, got a warrant for his old bank records showing he'd sold the car for cash 2 weeks after Sarah died. 3 weeks later, they arrested Marcus Webb for vehicular homicide. I wasn't there. I was at home with Mia when Emily called with the news. They got him, she said. It's over. But it wasn't over. That night, Marcus Webb's lawyer called me. Said his client wanted to speak with me before the arraignment. Face to face. No lawyers, no police. Just 2 men talking. Every reasonable part of me said no. But I needed to hear it from him. Needed to look into his eyes and understand why. I agreed to meet him at the county jail. The county jail smelled like disinfectant and despair. I sat in the visitor room, hands shaking, waiting for them to bring Marcus Webb through the door. I'd rehearsed what I'd say 1,000 times. Imagined screaming at him, demanding answers, making him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused. But when he walked in, wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, all my prepared words died in my throat. He looked smaller than I remembered from my surveillance. Older. His eyes were hollow, ringed with dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights I recognized in my own mirror. We sat across from each other, separated by a scratched plexiglass divider. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. I didn't respond. Just stared at him. He took a shaky breath. "I need you to know the truth. All of it. Not the version the prosecutor is building. The real story. You killed my wife." Yes. No hesitation. No denial. Just that single word that confirmed everything and destroyed me all over again. I killed Sarah. And I've been living in hell ever since. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. Why? Marcus Webb closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet too. Because I was angry. Because my life was falling apart and I blamed her. Because I'd convinced myself she'd overreacted, that she'd destroyed everything over nothing. I followed her that morning planning to confront her. Force her to listen. Make her understand what she'd done to me. He paused, swallowed hard. But when I got behind her car, all that rage just consumed me. She slowed down at the curve. I could have backed off. Could have let it go. But I accelerated. Hit her bumper. Watched her car swerve off the road and I just kept driving. The room spun. Hearing him say it, hearing the casual cruelty of it, made it real in a way all my investigation hadn't. I didn't mean to kill her, he continued, voice breaking. I swear I just wanted to scare her. But by the time I understood what I'd done, it was too late. I checked the news all day, hoping she'd survived. When I found out she died, I threw up for hours. Couldn't eat for days. You sold your car. I panicked. My ex-wife noticed the damage. Started asking questions. I got rid of the evidence and told myself maybe I could live with it, maybe I could pretend it never happened. He laughed bitterly. But you can't outrun something like this. Every day for 3 years, I've seen her face. Heard about her daughter growing up without a mother. Known I'm a murderer who got away with it. Then why didn't you turn yourself in? Because I'm a coward. Simple. Honest. Devastating. Because going to prison terrified me more than the guilt. But the guilt won anyway. I haven't had a real night's sleep in 3 years. Lost my kids, my career, everything that mattered. And I still had to wake up every morning knowing what I did. I wanted to hate him. Wanted to feel satisfied that he'd suffered. But all I felt was empty. Your lawyer called me, I said. Why did you want to see me? Marcus leaned forward. Because I need to tell you something the police don't know. Something that's going to destroy you. And I'm sorry. But you deserve to know the truth. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? The morning I killed Sarah, I've been following her for 45 minutes. From her house to your daughter's preschool. From the preschool toward her office. The whole time, she was on the phone. Crying. Talking to someone named Jenny. I stopped breathing. I couldn't hear everything through the windows. But I heard enough. She was crying about you. About how you changed. How distant you'd been. She told Jenny she'd found something on your phone while you were showering. Text messages with someone named Emma. No. No. Sarah knew you were cheating on her, Tom. She knew that morning. Was trying to decide whether to confront you or end the marriage. That's why she was distracted on that curve. That's why she didn't react fast enough when I hit her. The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I killed her, Marcus said. But you broke her heart first. She died knowing her husband betrayed her. Died crying about it. I hung up the phone. Stood up. The guard asked if I was okay, but I couldn't hear him over the ringing in my ears. I made it to my car before I collapsed. Sarah had known. Had found the messages. Had spent her last hour alive crying about my affair while a monster followed her to her death. My wife died broken-hearted and terrified, and both were my fault. I don't remember driving home. Don't remember the next few hours. I just remember Emily finding me on my kitchen floor at midnight, me asleep upstairs, me surrounded by empty bottles and Sarah's photos. He told you, Emily said softly. She'd talked to Marcus's liar too, had tried to warn me not to go. I told her everything through sobs that felt like they tear me apart. Sarah knew. She died knowing I betrayed her. And I killed her just as much as he did because if I hadn't cheated, if she hadn't been devastated and distracted, maybe she would have reacted faster. Maybe she'd have seen him coming. Maybe she'd still be alive. Emily held me while I broke. Tom, you didn't force him to follow her. You didn't make him hit her car. What you did was terrible, but her death isn't your fault. But it was. Marcus Webb went to trial 4 months later. I testified. Told them about the emails, the threats, the evidence. Watched the jury convict him of vehicular manslaughter. He got 12 years. 12 years for destroying everything. The prosecutor called it justice. Said Sarah's family could finally have closure. But there was no closure. Because the day after the sentencing, I got a letter. From Sarah. She'd written it the morning she died. Given it to Jenny with instructions to hold it unless something happened to her. Jenny had kept it for 3 years, unsure whether to send it. The trial had convinced her I needed to see it. The envelope shook in my hands as I opened it. Tom, it began in Sarah's handwriting. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. I'm probably being paranoid, but that a man from my office has been following me and I'm scared. I've reported it to the police and insurance, but I need you to know in case it's worse than I think. My vision blurred, but I kept reading. I also need to tell you something I found out this morning. I saw the texts with Emma. I know you've been unfaithful. I don't know how long it's been going on or if you love her, but I know our marriage isn't what I thought it was. Tears fell on the paper, smudging her words. I'm heartbroken, devastated, angry. But I also love you. I love the man I married, the father of my daughter, the person I built a life with. I don't know if we can survive this. I don't know if I want to try. But I know Mia deserves parents who fight for their family. The next part destroyed me. I was going to confront you tonight. Demand the truth. Maybe ask you to leave. But as I write this, driving to work, all I can think about is our first date. Do you remember? You were so nervous you spilled wine on your shirt. You laughed it off and said, at least now you know I'm human. That's when I knew I'd marry you. Because you were human. Flawed. Real. You're still human, Tom. Still flawed. And if we survive whatever comes next, If I make it through whatever this stalker situation turns into, I want to try to forgive you. Not because you deserve it. Because Mia deserves parents who show her that love means fighting through the hard parts. But if something happens to me, if this man does something terrible, I need you to know, I loved you until the end. Even hurt. Even betrayed. I loved you. Take care of our daughter. Be the man I thought you were. And please, please don't let my death be meaningless. Live a life that honors the family we built, even if you couldn't honor our vows. It was signed Simply Sarah with a heart. I read it 17 times before Emily found me unresponsive on the couch, the letter clutched in my hand, an empty bottle of sleeping pills on the table. They pumped my stomach at the hospital, kept me on sapieter cold for 72 hours. Emily took Mia, told her I was sick but would be okay. Another lie in an avalanche of them. The therapist assigned to me asked why I did it. I told her the truth. Because I destroyed the woman who was willing to forgive me. Because she died planning to save our marriage while I was planning my next betrayal. Because I don't deserve to raise her daughter or live in her house or benefit from her life insurance or accept condolences for a loss I caused. You didn't cause her death. I caused her pain. That's enough. They released me with medication and mandatory therapy appointments I knew I'd never keep. I went home to Mia, who hugged me tight and whispered, "Please don't leave me too, Daddy." So I stayed. Not because I wanted to. Because she deserved at least one parent. Marcus Webb is in prison. He'll be out in 8 years with good behavior. He'll get a second chance at life. Sarah is dead. She doesn't get chances. And I'm here, raising our daughter, attending her school plays and soccer games and parent-teacher conferences, playing the devoted single father, accepting sympathy from people who think I'm a victim of tragedy rather than an architect of it. Mia asks about her mother constantly. Did Mommy know I love her? Would Mommy be proud of me? Does Mommy miss us in heaven? I tell her yes. Tell her Mommy loved her more than anything. Tell her Mommy is watching over us, proud of the girl she's becoming. I don't tell her that Mommy died crying over Daddy's betrayal. I don't tell her that Daddy killed Mommy just as much as the man in prison did. I don't tell her that every time I look at her, I see the woman I destroyed. Last week, Mia found my wedding ring. I'd stopped wearing it after the trial, couldn't stand the weight of it anymore. "Why don't you wear this?" she asked, holding it up to the light. "Because it reminds me of things that hurt," I said honestly. "Did Mommy hurt you?" "No, baby. I hurt Mommy. And I can't forgive myself for it." She was quiet for a moment. Then she took my hand and slid the ring onto my finger. "Mommy would want you to wear it," she said. "Because she loved you. Miss Jenny told me. Said Mommy loved you even when things were hard." I looked at my 7-year-old daughter, this little human who'd inherited her mother's capacity for forgiveness, and I wanted to die all over again. Because she's right. Sarah loved me even when I didn't deserve it. Even when I betrayed her. Even in her last moments. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I took that love and burned it to ashes for one night with someone whose last name I barely remember. People ask if I'll ever date again. If I'll give me a new mother figure. If I'll move on. I won't. Not because I'm honoring Sarah's memory. Because I know what I am now. Know what I'm capable of. And I won't inflict that on another person. I wear the ring now. Every day. Not as a symbol of the marriage I cherished, but as a reminder of the marriage I destroyed. Marcus Webb took Sarah's life. But I took her heart first. And in the end, I don't know which crime is worse. The trial is over. The killer is locked up. Everyone says justice was served. But justice would be Sarah alive. Justice would be me having her mother. Justice would be me in prison too, serving time for the choices that set everything in motion. Instead, I'm free. Living in the house Sarah decorated. Sleeping in the bed where I planned my betrayal. Raising the daughter who will someday Google her father's name and find the news articles about her mother's murder trial. And when she does, maybe she'll ask why I never mentioned the affair that came out during testimony. Why I let her believe her father was innocent. Why I lied for years about who I really was. I don't have answers that will satisfy her. I just have this, a confession posted anonymously on the internet because I'm still too cowardly to own it publicly. Still too selfish to lose the sympathy I don't deserve. Marcus Webb is in prison for 12 years. I'm in prison for life, haunted by the woman who was willing to forgive me before I killed her with my selfishness. If you're reading this and thinking about cheating, about justifying that harmless flirtation or that one-time mistake, I'm begging you, don't. Not because you might get caught. Not because it's morally wrong, though it is. But because you'll never know what tomorrow brings. You'll never know if the person you're betraying will get a chance to forgive you or curse you or leave you. You'll never know if their last moment on earth will be spent crying over your betrayal while someone else ends their life. And if that happens, you'll join me in a special kind of hell, the one where everyone thinks you're a victim while you know you're the villain. I found proof that my late wife's car accident 3 years ago wasn't an accident. But the truth I found wasn't justice. It was the confirmation that I killed her long before the crash ever did.